Every issue in Yiddishkeit and every issue in the world is an issue in Yiddishkeit is very complex. And you can bring Mamorei Chazal to support one side of the issue, and probably as many Mamorei Chazal to support the other side of the issue. And therefore, if you only hear one side, you are not hearing something that's true. The chokhmah is to be able to know all the sides of the issue, even those that are on the surface conflicting and contradictory, and to know how to balance them out. This issue of Kirov is no different than any other issue. On the one hand, we've spoken over the years here of the importance of Kirov and how a person is responsible to be makarev other people. To give you a very strong Maimer Chazal explained by the Rabbi Yaakov Emden in Pirkei Avos, it says, "Halomed almanas lalamed, maspikim biyodo lilmod ulalamed. V'halomed almanas lasos, maspikim biyodo lilmod ulalamed lishmor v'lasos." So first, understand the Mishnah. There's something missing over here, and that is lishmor. A person who learns to observe the Torah. That goes without saying. If you learn and you're not interested in observing what you learn, better you shouldn't learn it. So that's not even mentioned in the Mishnah. So Hamalomed Amanas Lamed means a person who learns with the intention of observing what he learns and also to teach others. So he gets heavenly help to learn and to teach. What about a person who's Lomed Amanas La'asos? La'asos doesn't mean to observe the mitzvahs. It means to make other people observe the mitzvahs. So a person who has the intention not just to teach other people, not just to observe the Torah that he's learning, but to have an effect on people to make them also observe the Torah that he teaches them, so he gets tremendous siyata d'ishmaya, lilmod l'lamed lishmar v'lasos. Ask Rabbi Yaakov Emden a very simple question. What happened to the person who wants to learn and observe, but doesn't want to teach anybody? He just wants to learn for himself and observe the Torah. What does he get? Says Rabbi Yaakov Emden, since the Gemara says in Psachim that halomed shelo almanas lalamed, a person who learns Torah with the intention of not teaching it to anyone. That doesn't mean you have to be a teacher in a school. Doesn't mean you have to be a Rebbe or a Rosh Yeshiva. But it means that you have to want to share your Torah with others. And if you're not interested in sharing it with anyone, the Gemara says, Harei zeh dvar Hashem bozo. You're insulting, disgracing the Torah. And the end of that pasuk is, Hi kares ti kares. Says Rabbi Yaakov Emden, a person who's not interested in learning in order to teach and share his Torah with someone gets absolutely no siyata d'shmaya ki dvar Hashem bozo. So the minimal is lomed amanas lamed, to teach, to share your Torah with others. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, hevi mitamidav shel Aaron, ohev shalom, v'rodev shalom, ohev esabrios. What is the greatest manifestation of loving other people? Mekorven l'Torah, to bring them close to Torah. The Chafetz Chaim says that Kirov is a function of Hashavas Aveda. If you have to return somebody's ox that is lost, how much more so his heritage? Somebody who's lost his heritage is lost to him, and you have the ability to return it. So Avada is a mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda. By Avram Avinu, Chazal say that the Shnei Alofim Torah, the world is split into three 2,000-year epics. First 2,000 years were called the years of Tov Avo. The next 2,000 years were the years of Torah. And the last 2,000 years are the years of Yemos HaMashiach. When did the 2,000 years of Torah start? You could say it started with Noach. Noach learned Torah. He knew which animals were kosher and which ones were not. Chazal tell us the 2,000 years of Torah started when Hanefesh Asher Asu B'Chorah, when Avram Avinu was 52 years old, and he went out to be Makarev Goyim, that they should believe in God and give up their Avodah Zarah. That's when the 2,000 years of Torah started, because Torah is not Torah unless it's shared with others, unless you go out and you bring people closer to Torah who are estranged from Torah. That is the definition of what Torah is. Torah is not the property of any individual. It's the property of Klal Yisrael. And if there's someone in Klal Yisrael that doesn't have that heritage, something's missing in me. I always like to explain. It says by Avram Avinu, "V'hanefesh asher asu b'Charan." The nefesh they made in Charan. It should have said hanefashos. Avram Avinu was makar of a lot of people. So why does it say hanefesh? So I was thinking that the answer that nefesh is because the sum total of all the neshamos is one unity. So all of us are one nefesh. But that applies to Jews. It doesn't apply to Goyim. Avram Avinu was not makar of Jews. He's makar of b'nei Noach. So that answer, l'chora, can't apply. Therefore, I think it means something else. Two lessons, and both are important. The first is, when Avram Avinu went and it was makar of others, he felt that it was self-improvement. Ha-nefesh asher asu b'Charan, and it was his own nefesh. Because as long as there are people out there that don't know what they should know and are not doing what they should be doing, then there's something wrong with me. And I have a responsibility to see to it that they get back on the right track. So when Avram Avinu improved the lives of others, he was improving his own nefesh. And secondly, some people only think it's worthwhile to do Kirov if you're dealing with hundreds of people, thousands of people. But one or two people, what are you accomplishing? It's a waste of time. Anybody who thinks that it's only worthwhile to be makarev multitudes will be makarev no one. And someone who understands that it's kedai to be makarev one nefesh will be makarev multitudes of nefashos. Avram Avinu was willing to be makarev ha-nefesh asher asu. For one nefesh it was worthwhile, and therefore he was successful with thousands. In any case, we could go on, but that's not the topic here. Topic is not to convince you that Kirov is an important thing. I think I did that a few years ago. I don't remember. I don't expect you to remember, but it's somewhere in your gray matter. There's another side to the coin, though. And that is, the Rambam says, Derech briyoso shel adam lios nimshach acher ma'asav v'deosav. Person's nature, the nature of a human being. It's part of the nature of a human being. It's not just something that could be. It's nature. Just like you can't say, I'll put my hand in the fire and not get burnt. This is part of nature. That what? That a person is influenced by the people around him. And therefore, if you're around negative people, you're going to be influenced negatively. If you're around positive people, you'll be influenced positively. And therefore, a person should stay far away from negative influences and make it his business to be around positive influences. So if that's the case, when you're makar of people, usually you're makar of people that without that kiruv would be negative influences. So how do you allow yourself to get close to them when the Rambam says that it's going to be at least a two-way street? You may influence them, but they're going to influence you. In order to understand this, I want to start with a question from a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. The Mishnah says like this: Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma was traveling, and he met someone. The person seemed to be a menschliche person. He gave him shalom, and he answered the shalom. And the person asked Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma, where do you come from? Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma said, I come from a city with a lot of Talmidei Chachamim, yeshivas, beis batei medrashos. I come from a real Mokum Torah. The man said, you know, I envy you, because I come from a place where there's no Torah. There are no Talmidei Chachamim, there are no yeshivas, there's no nothing. Ritzoncha shetader imanu bimkomenu. Would you like to come and live with us in our place? And we have plenty of money. We have no Torah, we have plenty of money. And I'll give you everything you possibly could want. No budget. No limit. I'll give you precious gems and gold and silver, a lot of money. We have plenty of money. Come and live with us in our place. Now, if you were Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma, how would you respond to that? Tell you how I'd respond. Sure, tomorrow I'll be there, right? No budget? Fine. I'll bring 50 of my friends with me to start a kollel there. We'll start a day school. We'll start a girls' school, right? There's no limit. The sky's the limit. And we'll create a new Makom Torah in your place. How did any Makom Torah in the world ever get started, right? It wasn't initially, intrinsically a Makom Torah, right? In case you were thinking that Lakewood, New Jersey, by Brias HaOlam, right, was a Makom Torah, it wasn't. It was a Goyish resort town when Rav Aaron Kotler decided to open the Lakewood Yeshiva in Lakewood. So he could have stayed in New York, which is a Makom Torah. He chose to go to a place which was not a Makom Torah and create a new Makom Torah. Cleveland, Ohio, was not a Makom Torah when the Telzer Rosh Yeshiva started Telz there. It was the bastion of conservative and reform Judaism. So they went there and they started a new Makom Torah. They could have stayed in New York too. The Chazon Ish made Bnei Brak into a Makom Torah with others. But it wasn't a Makom Torah when he went there. The Makom Torah was Yerushalayim. Any Makom Torah in the world was created by people who left their Makom Torah and created a new Makom Torah. So I would imagine that Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma would jump at the opportunity. Here, there's no budget. Whatever you need. So I'm coming to your place and starting a Makom Torah. What did Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma say? You can give me all the money in the world. Ain't any door ela b'Makom Torah. I'm staying in my Makom Torah. Doesn't make any sense. Why? Why wouldn't he want to start a new Makom Torah? We'll leave that for a second. In order to answer it, I want to go back to Parshas Vayigash. The first opportunity that Klal Yisrael had to live in a negative environment. They were going to leave Eretz Yisrael and go down to Mitzrayim. Paro tells Yosef, take wagons, send them for your family, and bring them down here to Mitzrayim. I had such success with one son. I want the father, the other brothers. Mitzrayim is going to have its golden era with all these tzaddikim, all these Jews who brought such prosperity to Mitzrayim. So he wants them to come to Mitzrayim. And Yosef does what Paro says. He sends wagons to his father. And when the wagons get there, it says that Yaakov saw the wagons that Yosef sent. Vatechi ruach Yaakov avim. Why? Because he knew that Yosef was giving him a hint that the last thing they learned was Egla Arufa. Okay, and Yosef was hinting with the wagons. The word for wagon is Agala, and it's similar to Egla. So he was hinting to him, I remember what we were learning last. That is absurd for a few reasons. First of all, the Torah says that Pyros sent the wagons. Yosef didn't even send them. Secondly, right, if he had sent a wagon for absolutely no purpose, all of a sudden he sends a wagon. Why in the world he sent a wagon for? Oh, because a wagon sounds like Egla. That makes sense. You know why he sent wagons? Because they needed moving. That's what's moving truck. You know what it's like? Somebody sends someone a moving truck because they're moving. And the guy says, oh, I get it. Truck rhymes with luck. And he wants to send me good luck. What kind of good luck? He's sending you a truck to send you because he's moving. Where in the world was there a hint in Egla Rufa? And even if there would be a hint, Yosef didn't send the wagons. Paro sent the wagons. I think the answer is the following. If you look at the Psukim, it says that Paro tells Yosef the following. I want you to send wagons for your family, but don't send any wagons for their personal possessions. Why? Let them leave it in Eretz Yisrael, and when they come here, I will outfit them with the best of Egyptian clothing, the best of Egyptian furniture. Why did Paro say that? Because Paro knew that it's difficult for old people to move. They're basically set in their ways, and it's hard to move to a new place. And part of the difficulty is that you don't feel at home. It's hard to acclimate, right? You come to a new place, and the voltage is 220, and you have 110 appliances, you plug it into the wall, and it burns it out in a second. Right? You're dressed one way, and everybody else dresses somebody some way else. Right? You stand out like a sore thumb. Your furniture doesn't fit into the apartment in Mitzrayim that you had furniture in Eretz Yisrael, or the Eretz Yisrael furniture seems like dollhouse furniture in the beautiful Mitzrayim apartment. So you feel out of place. But he wanted Yaakov Avinu to come so badly that he told him, don't worry. I will make sure that you will be able to assimilate into Egyptian culture very quickly. Don't make a yard sale, sell everything you have, and I'll outfit you in clothing and furniture and everything you need, that you'll be able to feel comfortable here in Mitzrayim. Yosef knew that if he would tell his father that, he wouldn't come to Mitzrayim in a million years. It's the last thing in the world that he wanted, is to assimilate into Egyptian culture. So Yosef, knowing that Pyros' intention was to bring his father there, sent extra wagons. Wagons not only for the people, but wagons for every single thing they'll bring with them, so they will transplant Eretz Yisrael into Mitzrayim temporarily. And they'll live as if they were still in Eretz Yisrael. They're not living in Mitzrayim. They're living with the Egyptians. They're living amongst the Egyptians, but not with them. And it says, look into the Psukim, you'll see that. So when Yaakov heard that Paro sent wagons for the people, but not for their property, because he wanted them to assimilate into Egyptian culture, and Yosef added extra wagons so they could bring everything with them, so not to assimilate, then he understood that Yosef was still the same Yosef, and he hadn't assimilated. What does that do with Eglah Rufa? How do we know that Yaakov and Yosef were learning Eglah Rufa? How did the Chacham know? They had a Mesorah? No, it's very simple. What was the last encounter between Yaakov and Yosef before he was sold? Yaakov called his son Yosef and told him that he wants to send him to see what's doing with the brothers. And Yosef accepted the mission, and he was ready to leave. And Yaakov said, let me escort you out the door. And Yosef, of course, said, no, Dad, don't bother yourself. I know the way out. Everything's fine. Yaakov said, no, it's a tremendous mitzvah to escort someone. Yosef said, how do you know that? He said, because we learned from Eglah Rufa that the Beis Din, when they find somebody murdered and they don't know who murdered him, the Beis Din washes their hands over the Eglah Rufa and they say, Yodeinu lo shofchu es adam hazeh. We didn't spill this blood. Do we think the Beis Din were the murderers? But what they're saying is, we didn't know of this person's existence, that we let him go without food and water, and that we didn't escort him out of the city. Because if you don't escort someone, then you are a party to his murder. If you would have escorted him, then maybe he wouldn't have been murdered. So you see, escorting somebody is very important. The Maharal says that doesn't make sense. You weren't going to escort the guy with an armed guard till where he's going. So that's why they didn't murder him. They couldn't murder him. You escort him 4 amos outside the house. What's that going to help? He said, because a person who goes alone has only the schus of an individual. That's not so much schus. But if somebody accompanies him even part of the way, so now he has a schus, he's attached to others, the schus of the Rabbim is a much greater schus. The person's not going with him all the way, but you are not where you are, where your feet are, but where your mind is. And when you escort someone, you're going with them mentally. That in itself is if you're with them. That's what Yosef hinted to his father. I'm sending you wagons for every bit of possessions you have. So when you leave Eretz Yisrael and you come to Mitzrayim, you're still in Eretz Yisrael, because your mind is in Eretz Yisrael, even though your body may be here in Mitzrayim. How do I learn that? I learned that from Eglah Rufa. And that's why an Agola is called an Agola, and an Egel is called an Egel because the Agola is called an Agola because it's pulled by an Egel. Why don't we call the calf a karona, because it pulls a karon? Why do we call the wagon on the name of the animal? because the wagon is identified and defined by where it's going. Who's pulling it? Where is it being pulled? Where do you want to be? Not where are you? And that's what Yaakov understood, that Yosef understood, that he remembered this idea of Egla Arufa, that a person doesn't necessarily have to be where he is physically, but it's where he would like to be mentally. That defines who he is. And therefore bring everything from Eretz Yisrael and create an enclave of Eretz Yisrael in Mitzrayim. That's how you'll be able to survive. The proof to that is later on, Yosef tells his brothers, go and tell Paro, Achai ubeis ovi asher be'eretz Canaan bo elai. My brothers and father's home who are in Eretz Canaan came to me. Doesn't make sense. If they're in Eretz Canaan, they didn't come here yet. If they came here, they're not in Eretz Canaan. What the pasuk should have said is Achai ubeis ovi asher me Eretz Canaan bo elai. In fact, that's what they told Paro. Bo me Eretz Canaan. But he was telling his brothers, you're not here in Mitzrayim. You're still in Eretz Canaan, except you came here physically. But your mind is still in Eretz Canaan. That's where you are. And that's why Yosef told his brothers, when Paro asks you what you do for a living, you should say the following. Why should you say that? Ki toavas Mitzrayim kol ro'et zon. Because the Egyptians abominate shepherds. When they are near a shepherd, they get sick to their stomach, right? They can't stand the concept of a shepherd because they worship the sheep, and a shepherd treats the sheep like animals. So they can't stand shepherds. Now, if you didn't know what the pasuk said, what Yosef should have told his brother is the following. You don't know these Egyptians, but I do. If they ask you what you do for a living, say you're a plumber, a painter, a stock dealer, don't ever mention that you even know a shepherd. You never saw an animal in your life. Take a bath, clean your clothing, don't smell from animals, because these Egyptians abominate shepherds. You know what Yosef told them? When Paro asks you what you do for a living, tell him, we were always shepherds. Our fathers were shepherds. Our grandfathers. We don't know anything else about except being shepherds. What kind of advice is that? But that's exactly the point. You don't want to live with the Egyptians. You want to live amongst them. You want them to put you in Goshen, so you'll be able to be insulated from the Egyptians, even if you can't be isolated from the Egyptians. And that explains a Meiri. The Meiri says the following. The evil in this world is like a yam. It's like a sea. V'habricha mimeno, and the way to escape that evil is a boat. On the surface, that doesn't make sense. You can't escape the sea in a boat. The boat can only float on the sea. What he should have said is, right, the sea is the evil, and the way to escape it is an amphibious craft that can get out of the sea and go on the dry land. He didn't say that. He said it's a boat. You can't escape the sea. It's everywhere. Everywhere in the world there is waters, flood waters of evil. Nowhere in the world is safe. Nowhere. The most you can do is create a boat that will insulate yourself from those waters, even though you can't isolate yourself from the waters. That's the way to avoid hashpos hasviva. That's the way to avoid negative influences. You can't run away from them. There's nowhere to run. But you can insulate yourself. Now, how do you do that? Every time that people are supposed to be an influence over others, the Torah demands that they be separated from others. Not totally, but insulated. Klal Yisrael, we are supposed to be an or la'amim. We are supposed to be a light to the nations of the world. We're supposed to be mashpiyim on the world. And therefore, am levad ad yishkom. We live a separate. If we're supposed to influence the world, why don't we live amongst them? Why do we live separately? Levadad does not mean isolated. It means insulated. We live in our own world, in Eretz Yisrael, with our own standards and values, and Goyim come, and they come to the Beis HaMikdash to bring korbanos, and they see the greatness of Klal Yisrael, and it's like a lighthouse that illuminates the world. We are separate, but we're not isolated. But in order to develop our our own standards and values, so we have what to give over. We can't live with the nations of the world, but we can live amongst them, but with our own Mokum Torah. I always like to compare it, the artist's conception of a moon colony on the moon. So it needs its own. You can't walk around with those oxygen packs and those big, suits all day. You can't have a colony like that of people functioning, in spacesuits. So you have to create an artificial atmosphere, right, in this big bubble on the moon, which has its own atmosphere, its own gravitational pull, and you can function normally. You're on the moon, but you're not with the moon. You're separated with that bubble that makes it a different place. So you're not isolated from the moon, but you're insulated from the moon. That's how Klal Yisrael has to be. And Am Levod Ad Yishko. The Leviim are the teachers. Yoru Mishpatecha LeYaakov. They're the teachers of Klal Yisrael, the Leviim. And they're supposed to influence Klal Yisrael. I always like to say, I think I've said this in the past, I'll mention it again though. The Zohar says that Yisrael is Roshei Tevos, the first letters of the words, Yesh Shishim Ribu Osios LaTorah. There's 600,000 letters to the Torah. Simple meaning is that there are 600,000 letters in the Torah. There are 600,000 root souls of the Jewish people. Every Jew has a letter. Beautiful. There's only one problem. There aren't 600,000 letters in the Torah. So you'll tell me, okay, it's a gematria. One or two doesn't make a difference. How many letters are there in the Torah? 304,588. That's like half of 600,000. So unless we have the Reader's Digest condensed version, something's missing from the Torah. So where are these 600,000 letters? I know about 11 answers to that question. The Pnei Yehoshua speaks about it in Kedushin, Daf Lamed Aleph, you can look up. But I don't think there's any question. There's no question, you don't need any answers. The question would only be if it said, Yesh Shishim Ribui Osios Ba Torah. There's 600,000 letters in the Torah. But it can't be that, because then it would spell Yisro'ab and not Yisrael. To be Yisrael, it has to be Yesh Shishim Ribui Osios La Torah, which I think means the following. There are 300,000 letters in the written Torah, but that's not a complete Torah. Why not? Because the same Zohar says somewhere else, Yisrael, v'oraisa, v'kudsha b'richu chadu. The Jewish people and the Torah and the Rabbanim Shalom are all one. So the Torah is incomplete without the Jewish people. So yesh shishim ribi osios la Torah. If you want to add to the Torah to make it complete, you need to add another 600,000 letters, not written letters. Those letters are the neshamas of Klal Yisrael. They have to be added to the Torah to make the Torah complete. The only problem is, what bothered me, the 600,000 number does not include the Levium. There were another 22,000. So how come they're not included in this? 22,000 already is a hush of a number. Why is it 600,000? So I was thinking, there's another thing in the Torah besides letters. There's sirtut. There's lines that are almost invisible, but they have to be indented in the parchment, and you write the letter, the top of the letter on the line. So I said, you know what? The Levium, they're the lines. They're the sirtut. What's the purpose of the lines? They keep the letters straight, and they give them something to look up to. That's a Levi. And then I made a cheshbon. According to the minig, how we write a Sefer Torah, how many columns, how many lines in a column, it came out that in the Sefer Torah there are approximately 11,000 lines. That's in the Sefer Torah of 300,000 letters. If you have the Sefer Torah of the Jewish souls, is 600,000 letters. How many lines do you need? 22,000. Fits perfectly. That's a Levium. So a Levi is supposed to be the mashpia, the people who influence the Jewish people. And yet, the Avdaltam es ha-Leviim mitok b'nei Israel. Separate the Leviim. Why do you separate them? Every person should have a Levi, live in his house. So he can be a good influence. No. You want to be an influence? You have to be separated. Not isolated, but insulated. And in that insulation, from that, you are the sirtut. You're not another letter next to them. You're the line above. You're there. You're accessible. but you're not with. You're just amongst. That's how you can be mashpia. That's what Rabbi Yosef ben Kishma said. Rabbi Yosef ben Kishma was sensitive to the invitation. He didn't like the wording. What did they say? Ritzoncha shetadur imanu bimkomenu. It's redundant. You want to live with us? Obviously in our place. Ritzoncha shetadur bimkomenu. Obviously with us. Why imanu bimkomenu? Said Rabbi Yosef ben Kishma, you're inviting me to live with you in your place. We'll live shoulder to shoulder, but then it's not going to work that I'm going to be mashpia on you. What's going to happen is it's going to be a two-way street, and usually it's easier to be mushpa for the bad than for the good. It's easier to go downstairs than go up the stairs. So what's going to happen is we're both going to reach the lowest common denominator. It's not going to work. Rabbi Yosef ben Kishma said, I'll come to your place. But eneni dor ela b'makom Torah. Not that I'm going to stay in my makom Torah. I'm going to come to your place, but I'm going to live in a makom Torah in your place. I'm going to create that little bubble on the moon amongst you. I'm going to have my yeshiva and my kollel and my girls' school, and that's going to be my place amongst you. And you are welcome to come and to be mushpa from my makom Torah. We're going to open the doors to you, and we're going to be very friendly, but I'm not going to be a friend. Because if we break any barrier between us, then there'll never be hashpah. The hashpah is going to go both ways until we both reach the lowest common denominator. So, eneni dor ela b'makom Torah doesn't mean I'm staying where I am. I'll come to you, but I'll come to you and live in a makom Torah that I will create amongst you. And then I'm living in my makom Torah, and you are able to be mushba from my makom Torah. Then there could be a good hashpah. But if I'm going to live with you, that's impossible. Because living with you, right, is going to be a two-way street. Because derech briyaso shel adam lios mushba. And therefore it's possible to be makar of people. But you can't go down to their level and just be one of the boys. Yeah, we'll go to the bar together and drink beer together, except I'll be drinking the beer with a bracha, so l'maisa, that will be mashpia on you to want to really be a fruma yid, to do ratzon Hashem. Not going to work. In America today, this is a foreign concept, this idea. Even parents, teachers, right, have to be just one of the guys, just a friend. Parents are no longer parents. It's a democracy. Parents are two votes in the family, right? If they're outnumbered by their children, so when they have a family meeting and they discuss issues, chas v'shalom, never the parent telling the child what to do, because they're older and more experienced and are able to control themselves, hopefully, more than their little children. But this is a democracy. You don't tell your children what to do, right? You discuss it, and you vote, right? So parents are supposed to be friends. They're their children's friends. Those children have two more friends and no parents. They're yisomim, with two more friends. They call their parents by the first name, Jack and Jane. They don't call them mommy and tati, or father and mother, or dad and mom. No, chas v'shalom. That's not democratic. They call them by their first name. You call me by your first name. You don't call me son, daughter. Call me by my name. I call you by your name. There is no parents then. There's no discipline. There's no nothing. The same thing goes with teachers, right? There has to be a certain surface tension between the teacher and the student, where the student knows this is the teacher. That's why there's a mitzvah of kavod and yira. There's a tremendous inyan of ava, but there's also an inyan of yira. Yira doesn't mean to be afraid. It means to respect. There's a certain distance. You're together, you're amongst, but you're not with. The teacher's still a teacher. Still a distance. Because if not, teacher's not a teacher. Teacher's another friend. And usually not such a good friend. So what kind of hashpah could there be? Rabbis. I know chaverim of mine, not such chaverim, but that feel that a rav can only be successful if he's one of the guys. You know, he's just another one of the guys, and this way he'll be mashpia. He won't be mashpia anything. He'll give his kehil another friend, but not a rav. A rav has to be friendly, very friendly, but not a friend. He's still a rav. Even the Rabbanu Shalom. The Ribono Shel Olam gave us a mitzvah of Ava. We have a tremendous connection to the Ribono Shel Olam. At the same time, there's a yira too. There has to be a separation. There has to be a certain distance. Because if not, then you'll gain nothing from the Ribono Shel Olam. So we tell the Ribono Shel Olam, we speak to him directly, Baruch Atah. But in the end of the bracha, we speak to him in the third person to know that that Atah is not just our friend. That Atah is the Ribono Shel Olam. And anyone who has to have hashpah, a Rav, a Rebbe, a parent, Klal Yisrael to the world, the Leviim to Klal Yisrael, cannot be with, can only be amongst. That's what Yosef taught us with the agolos that he sent. You want to create a little Eretz Yisrael amongst the Egyptians, but you don't want to live with the Egyptians. Because if you live with the Egyptians, you're not an Am Levadad anymore. The ideal Am Levadad, be in Eretz Yisrael, in your own environment, and let your light spread to the whole world. Don't be isolated from the world, but be insulated from the world. So that is on the one hand, you could be Makarev. At the same time, you have to be careful that Derech Briyoso Shel Adam Lios Mushpa. How do you balance those two things out? By fulfilling being amongst, friendly, but not a friend, not with. On the one hand, a person has to want to be Makarev the whole world. The second, you have to know that you can't always do that. That sometimes being Makarev people is going to hurt you more than it's going to help them. Or it's not going to help them at all, it's only going to hurt you. So you have to know when to pull away, when you can't do it, even though you have a tremendous desire to. What's the difference? The difference is that when it's possible, you'll do it. If you have no desire, then even when it's possible, you won't do it. With that, I want to explain, to end with, a very difficult Rabbi Yaakov ending in the Siddur. The Gemara says that Birchas Haminim, B'yavne tiknua. They were mesak in the bracha of L'malshinum al Tisikva in Yavne. Simple meaning, when the Sanhedrin was in Yavne, it was Shimon, Shmuel HaKotten, who composed Birchas Haminim at the behest of Rabbi Gamliel. Says the Yaakov ending, B'yavne tiknua. Yavne is Yayin B'samim Ner Havdalah. What in the world does that Gemara have to do with Havdalah? I think the idea is like this. Chazal made a bracha to curse the minim, to separate ourselves totally from them. Because being around the minim and even having some kind of camaraderie with them is dangerous. Because derech briyoso shel adam, person by nature is influenced. However, that's not the first line of defense. First, yayim. Try, sit down with them, have a l'chaim together, right? Because godel legima, by eating together with somebody, could be mashpi on them. Try that out. Yayin. Or, alternately, yayin represents emotion. Some people are influenced by emotion. Invite them to a Shabbaton, dance with them the whole day, sing, and they're emotionally turned on to Yiddishkeit. Okay? Some people are not affected by emotion. They're kalto litvaks. They're they don't want to sing, dance, So try with them, besamim. Show them the aesthetics of Yiddishkeit. Right? But that's a little bit farther away. Besamim, you could stand yayin, you sit together and drink together. Besamim, you pass the besamim down to the other end of the table. They're a little bit separated, but you can show them the aesthetic beauty of a Jewish home, of what a Shabbos is like. Some people are influenced by that. That doesn't work? Then ner. Some people are attracted to the intellectual side of Judaism. Sit and learn a daf Gemara with them. Show them how deep and intellectual Torah is. And a ner, you could be mamash at the other end of the room, farther away. If you tried everything, the yayin approach, and the besamim approach, and the ner approach, and you got nowhere, then havdalah. Then separate yourself. Because, yes, it's a big mitzvah to mekara people, but it's not a big mitzvah to commit spiritual suicide. So when you've tried everything, you've a little bit distance, a little bit more, in the end, if nothing works, then the danger is to you, you're not going to benefit them, then havdalah. That's the yavne tiknua. So, Mirza Hashem, if we understand how to balance these two things. On the one hand, we understand how important it is to be makar of other people, how much it is a perfection of ourselves to do it, and how imperfect we are if there are other imperfect people in the world. At the same time, we know that it's a dangerous thing, because if you don't do it properly, you'll be the one who's influenced, not the one who's doing the influence, and you know how to balance them properly, like we said, to be amongst, but not necessarily with. Then we'll be zoche to be able to shed our light, to be an or la'amim, not only to Jews, but to the entire world. And then, u'mola ha'oretz deos Hashem, kamayim le'yam le'chasim, the world will be filled with deos Hashem, b'vias kol tzedek and Hirav Yamei.